Hi, I'm Mike from 1A Auto. We've been selling auto parts for over 30 years.
Hi everyone, Sue here from 1A Auto, and today we have a 2013 Camry in the shop, and I'm going to show you how to replace the oil pan. It's got a 3.5 liter in it. If you need this part or any other part for your car, click on the link below and head on over to 1aauto.com. Open your hood, of course, and I like to take the oil filter cap off. For one, it's a quick note to make sure that I ordered or I have the correct oil for the car, and then I will tip it upside down like that. So that tells me if I get called away and I come back, I didn't put the oil in yet. So it takes 0W20, which is a full synthetic oil, and this particular 3.5 liter takes 6.4 quarts of it. Now I'm going to raise it up and drain the oil. So now we have raised our Camry and we're underneath it. The oil filter housing location is right here in front of the oil pan. It's an aluminum cover and it has a centerpiece to it. That's how you drain the style cartridge filter. So this filter itself is a factory filter, but we sell it here at 1A Auto. Strongly recommend if you look it up, hopefully we have it for your car too. You can't get any better than, obviously, this filter. It comes completely with directions, and it also comes with new gaskets and the drain. So there's a special way to do these. Some people avoid doing it this way. I like to follow directions. So 2 new gaskets and the new cartridge filter. So first let me show you how to use this. Pretty neat. So we have a 3/8 drive extension. It looks like someone kind of beat the crap out of it, to be honest with you. So I hope this works. I don't know. There is a torque spec for these, but some people just go crazy with it. Like this person. That I can tell you is over 24 newton meters, and that's what the spec is. All right, so now I've got that loosened. I'm going to get my catch pan, place it right underneath it. Just take this little cover off. I remember the first time I had to do one of these, and I'm like, oh no, the oil didn't come out. And I'm like, oh, I was like panicking. And I'm like, what kind of device is this? And then I opened the filter, and I was like, no kidding. It's like a little plunger. So you squeeze that into the place, rock it around, let it go up in, and look at that. Now that filter cartridge is draining, and I'm clean. It's like, oh, they had to, wait 120 years to come up with this idea? So we're gonna let that drain, and I'm gonna grab a 14mm wrench to pull that open. So with a 14mm, I'm going to use a socket. And I know this is going to be tight because that filter was tight. There's no way this isn't. People, can we talk about this? This is an oil pan. The torque specs is 30 foot-pounds, and I think that's extreme. But I wish I could measure to see how far this, Lord, here we go. Let's see. Maybe, hopefully I won't knock the car off the lift. I don't think I can do it. I can't get it at this leverage. I'm going to move up to a 1/2 inch. This will be the first time in a long time. 1/2 inch drive to take a drain plug out. So this is kind of comical, obviously. If you've never done an oil change, this is your first time, this is not normal. This is obscene is what it is. But wish me luck. There we go. Wow. I had to use a breaker bar. And it's not because I'm little Sally. Now, at this point, we could drain both the cartridge filter housing and the oil pan. Now, while we still let the oil drain out of the drain plug, I'm going to take this piece down because I'm going to use the oil filter wrench to take that housing down. Might have to get a pair of pliers and just pry it down. Just throw that out. So we sell this tool, oil filter wrench tool, on our site, 1A Auto. And if you can look at the housing, it's got 2 notches on both sides. So you're going to line up those notches right in that housing. I'm going to take a extension, roll that a little ways, get my ratchet. It's 3/8 drive, the centerpiece is, and it's also, you can use an actual socket on it. I'm going to turn counterclockwise. Yeah. It's no shocker to me. Same person put the drain plug in, and okay, so what are we going to do now? Let's give it one more good shot. So you can see how you have a 3/8 drive option to use a ratchet with extension, or you've got the cutout. And because somebody put this thing on with all their might, I'm going to go with the socket cutout, and it's a 27mm socket. Wow. This does have a torque spec to it, so your new one will not be that tight. Line our bucket up. Take the cartridge down. Should be minimal oil because we already drained it. And it is. So now this is the cartridge. It slides right in. This is an aftermarket one. They didn't go with factory. So you can see the gasket right there. And what you want to do is take a small screwdriver. There's a little notch right here. Just slide that gasket out. Now I'm going to let that drain a little bit because I'm going to get some brake clean or parts clean and clean that. Now I'm just going to hover over my drain pan, and I'm going to take some brake clean and clean the inside of my housing. Obviously we want this clean, but we also want it dry. You don't want to reassemble this with any brake clean on it. Clean up the threads, clean up that part. You're never going to get it 100%. It's always going to start draining a little bit of oil out. After I brake cleaned it and got it all dried out, I just took a nice clean rag, wiped it all down. It's 100%. I'm just going to take the same rag and clean my housing, make sure there's no debris in there. You don't want it to obviously get caught. This is an aluminum housing, and you don't want anything binding up these threads. Now, the great thing about this housing is it tells you right on it, tighten cap to 25 plus or minus 5 Newton meters. You can always go to your cell phone or a laptop or a computer and punch in a conversion chart, and you're going to go Newton meters to inch pounds or foot pounds and cross it over, and it will give you that if your torque wrench doesn't have it on there. So now I'm going to show you how to assemble your oil filter. So the cool thing about this filter too that we sell, the manufacturer puts all the directions I just verbally gave you right here. So we even have the torque specs for that little cover that goes on last. So first thing I'm going to do is open up my O-rings. It's like Christmas. Christmas every day. I'm going to put the new oil O-ring on this housing, and it's that big deep groove. So get it down as far as you can, then slide it over, bring it around, boom. And you are going to lubricate that with some fresh clean oil. So now I'm going to take the cartridge and just slide it right over. It's a tight fit, and they want it to be a tight fit. That's a spring loaded too in there. So that's cool, we're ready to go on that. We're going to assemble this piece, which is this one. Once it's in the car, look at the gasket, see it's crushed? That's because the maniac that tightened this was a little bit what's the word I'm looking for? Over ambitious. And it comes with a new gasket on that too, which would go right here, but I'm not going to put it on yet because I want to put this whole thing back up there and tighten it. So I'll set that aside with the housing. So now we're going to get some new oil and coat that. So I'm just going to take some of the clean oil, and dab it on the pinky, and just coat that gasket. Don't be afraid to get some on the threads too. That won't hurt. Now I'm going to just take that housing, got it right up in there. Wow, is that smooth. Nice. Put it down as tight as I can put it on my hands. All right, and we'll get our torque wrench. Let's put it on the Newton meters. So now we have our 3/8 drive torque wrench set up for, I have it at 25.7 Newton meters. And the specs 25, give or take 5.5, so let's get that to sit right in there. There we go. That's it. That's how easy that was. So now I'm going to put the cover on for the little drain cap, and I am going to put fresh oil on that gasket. Coat that. And then it goes up on the housing. Sits right inside there. It is a little oversized, so don't think it's wrong. They want it to be pressed in there. There we go. Now I'll take that cover. I'm going to start it by hand. And the torque specs on this is on the side of the oil filter box if you got one from us, or if you got the factory, which is one and the same. And it will tell you right here that little cap is 9.5, give or take 2 foot-pounds, or 12.5, give or take 2 Newton meters. So I put it at the, it's 9.5, give or take 2 foot-pounds, so I'm at 9.5 foot-pounds. That's how easy that one is. No half-inch breaker bar here. So now we're going to put our drain plug back in, and prior to putting it in, you want to check for your drain plug gasket. So I looked for the gasket on the drain plug. I cleaned it up. There was no gasket. So sometimes they fall down in the pan. So I checked inside the pan. And there's no gasket. Sometimes they stick to the pan. So I came over and I went to go wipe it down. There's no gasket. So this will also kind of tribute to why this person had this so tight. They lost the gasket, probably didn't realize it, during one of their oil changes, and so when they tightened it, it probably had a drip to it, and they just kept cranking on it. That's why I had to use a half-inch breaker bar to break it free. We're not going to do that. We have actual gaskets. So this is like a compressed cardboard style gasket, and it's for this exact application. Goes on nice and snug. Now the torque specs for this actual drain plug for the factory is 30 foot-pounds. So I have my torque wrench ready to go with a 14mm socket. Wow, that's it. Pretty easy. Let's pick up after ourselves. Everything comes back to like what, kindergarten? Pick up after yourself. 10mm 1/4 inch swivel is what I will be using. That's the weapon of choice. I'm going to put a magnetic pan right there because we have a lot of bolts. So directions wise, there didn't say that we had to lift the engine, move the exhaust, or anything. If you don't have a 1/4 inch drive swivel, I would say invest in it. Can't be too expensive. It might be all you need to do this job without any headaches. We'll be the first to know. You'll be the second if you watch. So basically I'm just going to go all the way around, take these down. So I went all the way around, got all the easy ones, and I left the more difficult ones for you guys to watch. So you can see why hopefully the 1/4 inch swivel will work, and it might be worth getting one if you don't have one. Okay, one more over here, and then we have just one over under the subframe. You could use a wrench on these two, definitely. If you had to, you could use a wrench. But the one I'm going to show you over the subframe, I guess you could use a wrench also, but you'd have to take the plastic shield maybe out of the way in the motor mount. So there's actually one more bolt. There's a bolt and a nut. Toyota uses, they have like studs in 2 or 3 locations, so that way it's easier for when you put the pan up, it can go on the studs, and you can put a quick nut on it instead of having to line up a bolt thread and cross it. The pan will not fall down either. We're going to have a heck of a time taking it down. The RTV gasket is like holding it up in there, so you don't have to worry too much. Yep, see, we won't get this in there. So maybe I will use a wrench. Let's give it a shot. So I ended up finding a stubby 10mm wrench with a 12-point box end, and I'm going to take a pry bar and see if I can break that free. And I did. Let's see if I can get it at a different angle now. So we loosened it up enough that we can seem to be doing it by hand, and then it stopped. Makes a liar out of me. Like I was trying to take it out, but it wouldn't come out. There we go. So I gave it a quick visual one more time all the way around, and I did find one more bolt here before I start prying the pan down. That would have been hard to pry down. So let's give it another quick visual, make sure that all the bolts and nuts are off. Yep, looks good. So, like I said, this is stuck up there pretty good from the factory with the gasket they make. So now we're going to try to vibrate it loose. I'm going to use a rubber mallet, dead blow hammer. What you don't want to do is try and, with all your might, not use a pry bar or a screwdriver, because that's an aluminum block and you can scar it, scratch it, or actually crack it. So I'm going to take, I have a hook here, but I'm not going to hit the block. Because I'm replacing the pan, so I'm going to try to, I'll use the subframe as leverage. Maybe I can pry down on it while I hit it. You're just going to have to keep working your way around. There you go. So I put pressure on the front here against that subframe. And now with that broken free, I can softly guide something in there. I'm going to take this bolt down. Looks like a 12mm to get this shield out of the way, just to give me a little bit more play here. Oh yeah, that's not factory. I was like, I've never seen a 13mm head socket. Yeah, so put that in there. Well, it did the job. Okay, now with that down out of my way a little bit, see if I can get my hand up here, pull down on the pan. I'm trying to avoid, obviously, dropping the exhaust down. That's what we're trying to avoid here. Well, we tried. I had best intentions because it visually looked like I could probably take this down without doing anything. And I tried to find a schematic on our computer system, and it didn't give any directions. So I was like, well, maybe it's that easy. Well, it doesn't seem to be. It seems like I'm going to have to take the exhaust down. It's hitting right here. So I'm just going to spray up all my exhaust bolts and studs, get those ready. We're going to have to unclip the O2 sensors also. We'll let that sit for a little bit. Take the splash shield down, 10mm socket. Undo all the little bolts that hold it up. Disconnect the downstream O2 sensor connectors. We want these disconnected before we start unbolting the exhaust. Kind of a little difficult to get to, but sometimes you'll find these kind of connectors filled with like road salt or sand, and the tab just does not want to move. So I'll take my little screwdriver, see if I can convince it. I don't want to break it, I just want to push down with that tab easy. Let's go from the back side here, lift up on it a little bit. You can hear the sand crunching. There we go. I'm going to undo these two nuts that hold this pipe over. It's just like a little hanger bracket. It's a 12mm socket. Be able to let the exhaust come down enough to get that pan out. So I think that'll do it like that. 14mm socket and probably a wrench also. We gotta take the 2 bolts out of the flange that go to the back manifold. I think I'm gonna use a 1/2 inch. So I went up to a 1/2 inch. Let's see if we can get this. Perfect. I'm going to break them all free. Okay, so those all broke free, and I'll use the 3/8. Not so bulky. Now we're just going to back the bolts completely out, all of them, all 4. We got the last nut on the exhaust right here. Okay, let's see if we can get this to fall down a little bit. So we're going to have to undo, I'm going to take the bracket out. It's 12mm socket. Still won't come down. So it looks like the exhaust is going to have to come all the way down. I'm just hoping that this doesn't break. That's the whole point of not taking that down. Let's just go for it. I'm going to reverse this, bring it back up, see if I can shake any of that rust free. Sure is annoying, but it didn't break. Okay, here we go. Let's hope the pan doesn't fly down. There it is. Now the pan's down, and I'm just wiping some of the residual oil from dripping on me, on the cameraman. Push that dipstick up. So now we're gonna get a razor blade or a flat blade and clean up all this RTV. We're gonna take the studs out, and I'm gonna mark where they go on the new oil pan, and that way I know that's where the factory wants the studs. And they're inverted torque bit sockets. Take those out. It's just easier to clean for cleaning, that's the reason. I know it's the corner bolt, so it's gonna be this one right here. And it's funny because the pan is dark. I guess I could try to mark the inside. Yeah, that won't harm the engine. So one there, and then one right here. Good enough. I have an inverted torque socket into E6, and I'm gonna take this stud right out. The other one's gonna be a bit challenging because it's right there at that frame. So I ended up finding a little small wrench, and it is a 4mm wrench, and it loosened up the stud, so it's gonna work. It just saves so much aggravation with cleaning if you can get the actual studs out of the way whenever it comes to cleaning the gasket surface. Take this stud right out. So I have a metal flat edge, what they call a scraper. See, it's got an angle on it. And I'm gonna start peeling this gasket off. Razor blades are nice, but with it aluminum, you'll find the razor blade will want to dig into the aluminum. It has to be really sharp, and it dulls real quick, and you're constantly changing them. So even if you have an old screwdriver you don't like, flat blade, maybe sharpen it down on one edge and try this. It's just light pressure. You don't want to dig it into the aluminum. You just want to get all that gasket off. Work your way all the way around. It's going to take some time, so this is where you turn up the music you love and have a little patience. So I've been doing this for like a good 20 minutes so, wiping the oil off and then scraping with my steel scraper. Now I'm going to use my sanding block with my emery cloth on it. Keep it nice and flat. I just want to get as much as the RTV that you can off, because you want it to seal, you don't want it to leak. There's going to be places that I can't get in with this, so I'll probably end up getting a piece of emery cloth and just use my hand. So that's why I took the studs down, because look how much easier it is to clean that. I'm done sanding, done scraping. It looks really good. I'm going to take a clean rag, load it up with some brake clean, get it really heavy and soaked. Now I'm just going to wipe my surface. Nice. You don't want any oil drips when you put that RTV on that gasket sealer. Looks good. Nice clean surface. Once again, don't use one of those air-operated grinders and cookies, because you're going to chew the aluminum. That's the whole point. That's what it does. And all that dust is going to go up inside your block, and it's going to get into the oil. Even though there's oil still in there, you're going to get it sit on the bearings. It's just going to do more harm than good, because it's metal material. You're putting aluminum dust up inside your block. Not exactly smart. So let's be smart about it That was easy, it was effortless, it was actually kind of tranquil. Here we have our brand new oil pan that we got from 1A Auto, and here's the factory Toyota pan we just took down from the block. They're identical in shape and size. Ours comes with a brand new drain plug and gasket. So if you need this part or any other part for your car, click on the link below and head on over to 1aauto.com. So here's all our oil pan bolts and the 2 studs. Where are you? Where's the other one? Oh, here it is. They have very little RTV on the single right where they hit. So they're really small. Do I want to put a wire wheel brush on it? Not really. I think that this is safe. There's no need to grind these down or try to clean them. They're not bad at all. So we're gonna put the 2 studs back up in where they belong. There's the marking that I had marked on the inside of the block casing. And I'm just gonna start that stud by hand. And then the other one is right here. I marked it on the inside. I'm gonna get my inverted Torx and I'm gonna tighten that one up. You just wanna snug that up, you don't wanna break it. And I'm gonna get the 4mm wrench. There it is. Tighten this one up. Nice, there it is. Perfect. I'm gonna take a rag and you can see some of the oil residual just comes running down the pit inside that crankcase wall. That's perfectly normal. I'm gonna wipe that free as fast as I can. Hope it stays dry because I'm gonna apply my RTV gasket to the actual block. Putting it on the pan and manipulating it up, in my career I have found it makes a mess everywhere. You'll end up hitting the pickup screen, you'll hit the frame, the oil, it's just a mess. So I'm gonna go with my experience and I'm gonna apply the gasket, seal it right to the block. Okay, I'm gonna start from the top. Make an 1/8 of an inch bead. I personally like to go on the inside of the threads, like around, when I go around the thread hole, I go on the inside. Nice. Okay. Seal this up. Now let's put the pan up. I'm going to go up this side first. Just bring it over so that I can hopefully clear. Put it right on that stud. There it is. And this stud. Done. Look at that. No messing around. Oh, there it is right there. Just going to snug it up. Don't bottom it out or tighten it, because you still have to get all the bolts into all the other bolt holes. So I'm just going to put 2 or 3 up there before I take my hand down. Then I'm going to use my speed wrench, 1/4 inch speed wrench, and load up the rest. There we go. And then all I have left is the stud that's really hard to get in there, so this one's going to take me a few minutes to get this nut to start. Let's see if I can use the screwdriver. I got the 10mm ratchet wrench. Barely fits because it hits the pan, but as long as I can get it to go up further than smidge at a time. That's about as close as I can get with that. So we got some new gaskets once we took the exhaust down so we could take the oil pan down. I didn't want to reuse these. You can see how the centerpiece has got some pieces missing, and that's just asking for it to leak. And we did end up finding the bolts broke and stripped out, so I just re-tapped and drilled out the bolts, so the studs I mean, and so I'm going to end up putting bolts with nuts straight through instead of studs. So I'm going to put the new gasket on. I got one in the back already. I'll put the one in the front on. The two short ones, bolts, I'm going to put back here. And I think I'm going to put the bolts facing down. And I've got self-locking nuts. This is a, doesn't matter what size the bolts are, doesn't matter what size the bolts are for thread-wise, because I drilled the holes straight through, knowing that I was going to use some lock nuts. Now the front ones, the one on the right didn't break, it worked perfectly fine, so I just re-tapped it, and the thread is a 10 by 125. So I'm going to bolt this side up through, but I'm going to put lock nuts on the other side once they go through. Okay, that holds it in place. Now I'm going to get an extension, start this one by hand. So my new bolts are a 14mm socket. Once it starts coming through the other side, I'm going to put a lock nut on that side. Get everything started, and I'm going to use an air gun to tighten everything up, because I want to make sure that the actual gaskets and stuff are seated, and I don't want any leaks. I don't want any trouble. All right, we're going to tighten up the bolts with the impact gun. So now last we're going to put this bracket up, and the reason I put it up last and because I had to move you're going to move the exhaust around to center it on the gaskets. Now we're going to put our shield back up. Make sure we get it all in the right space. Oh, this is that one that someone put this big threaded screw into the subframe here. Well, it's better than nothing. I've seen them hanging down. All right, we should be a 10mm socket. There we go. So that had no bolt in it, nothing. I'm going to see if I can put a plastic clip in there when I get back to it. So I just looked at the other side to confirm how this goes, because it doesn't seem, putting it together you're like, this is upside down. But that is the way the other side was, and I never touched it. Okay, last one. Okay, that's it. Now I'm gonna go get a plastic body clip and put that one up there. That's it. So I found a nice body clip that we're gonna use to keep this shroud from hanging down. Sometimes when you get things in, this piece is missing, so we just put a clip in there. That'll work great. Now we're ready to put our oil in. And it's 0W20, and it is 6.4 quarts. So now that we've put our 6.4 quarts of oil in, I'm going to start it, let it run for like a minute or two, make sure the oil light goes out, and then let it sit for 5 minutes, and then I'm going to come out and check the oil. First thing you do is pull that dipstick, clean it off. There's no oil left on it. Put it back in, and we'll check the level. Wow, that's like right there. It's perfect. It's where you want to be on the top notch, and it's so clear that you can't see it, but it's right there. So that's good. So whenever you check your oil, this is the safe zone. From that dot to the top dot, in between is a safe zone. If you're driving your car and you're running, you stop, you get gas, and you're like, oh, I wonder if I need oil. And it's here, do not add oil. Even if it's on that lowest dot, don't add oil. When the car runs, the oil goes up to the top half of the engine, and it could take like a good 10 to 15 minutes sometimes for all that oil to go back into the pan so it gets the proper reading. That used to be an old trick that gas stations attendants used to do. They would tell people they need oil. Let me check your oil, knowing that the car's been running. And they'd pull the stick out and show you that it was down a quart, and you'd go, oh my God, what? Put a quart in. And when I started in this industry back in the early 80s, I was told to do that. And I said, no, I can't do that. And they said, but you get 20 cents per quart you sell. And I said, I can't do that. So, goes to show you, so pay attention, know your car a little bit better, and understand things and how they work.
Thanks for watching. Visit us at 1AAuto.com for quality auto parts, fast and free shipping, and the best customer service in the industry.